calling it Grixis Amulet here. And you had mentioned that is because of the 4-of card Primal Amulet.
Yep, so this deck is just very in on this card. It's full of cantrips, cards that redraw, 4 Glimmer of Genius, kind of the biggest draw spell in the deck. And it's just a bunch of removal spells, and it's trying to win the game. It has 1 copy of Torment of Hailfire and some Cut to Ribbons.
I want to see that copied.
That is a nice one to copy.
Players just going to trade some lands here to start. Looking at the Teamer Energy deck, you mentioned that the creature lands rotating out. Are you concerned at all about the mana stability of a 3-color deck like Teamer Energy with going forward? We're seeing here that Thomas had to use an Aether Hub to make his turn 2 Servant of the Conduit.
So the Energy deck is going to be one of the more robust mana bases just because of the energy mechanic. You have your Attune with the Ethers, Aether Hub, Servant of the Conduit. And you also could play Rootbound Craig as well. I think that the mana base of Teamer Energy is going to be one of the more stable 3-color mana bases in the format.
A Cut to Ribbons takes care of Servant of the Conduit, and Thomas replaces it with Long Tusk Cub. Cut to Ribbons as a removal spell, I'm a big fan of this. It's a 3-of in Zach's deck. When I think about sorceries that I'd love to copy with Primal Amulet, Ribbons is pretty high on the list.
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting some look at Zach's plan. Just kill spells into kill spells, so he's going to cast Harness Lightning. A 3-3 split. His removal actually is very interesting. 3 Harness Lightning, 3 Cut to Ribbons, 2 Magma Spray, and 1 copy of Struggle to Survive.
Something that's really noteworthy about Zach's deck is it's very much built to actually inevitably win with Ribbons, with Torment of Hailfire. His deck's all removal spells and cantrips. He's not going to be casting any Torrential Gearhulks. There's no creatures in this deck.
Opt End Step by Zach Elsik. This is one of actually the more exciting cards here in Standard. It's, as far as 1-mana cantrips go, it's pretty high on the list. It's one of the only instant speed ones that really we get.
And there's a miss on your bingo card. That was a scry to the bottom with Opt. Team Matthias looking for a scry to the top.
I do have that on here. Absolutely, yeah, top of the I column.
And unfortunately for Team Ryan, I have a Glimmer of Genius Square, but it relies on Torrential Gearhulk, which Zach is not playing.
Well, Tom is taking a big risk here on end step. He cycled Sensor, but he used his last energy off his Aether Hub.
Speaking of bingo, Sensor cycled.
First on the board.
Left center column.
Goes for Whirler Virtuoso. Gets 3 more energy, refills that Aether Hub, but Zach will end step Glimmer.
That's in my good row, too.
It's a long game. And see Zach end step drawing here. Picks up a copy of Sweltering Suns. That's going to be a clean answer to Virtuoso and those Thopter tokens. He'll have to find second red. And now we get our first flip card here. This is going to be Search for Azcanta. I do like this card in Zach's deck. The 2-mana enchantment allows him to, every turn at the beginning of his upkeep, basically scry one. It's a little bit better. If he looks at the top card and chooses to either keep it on top or put it in the graveyard, when it has 7 cards, this transforms into a land with a pretty nice ability. You and I are actually talking about this card, saying it's going to be difficult to first parse how good the card is, but what I like about it is in a control deck, transforming into a land kind of plays like a Rampant Growth, which is great for control.
Yeah, this deck definitely wants to have a lot of lands in place. And notably, Zach is missing a second red source. It is just a blue mana source, but that extra land is nice. And also, because Zach is not playing creatures, he has a ton of hits with it in his deck.
Opt again, he draws. Interesting, he scried on top for the turn. Now he's casting Opt.
Perhaps Opt was the card left on top.
Yeah, I mentioned when this card flips into Search for Azcanta, when he finds Azcanta, Azcanta is a land that for 3 mana, at instant speed he can tap, looks at the top 4, puts a non-creature, non-land into his hand, and puts the rest into the graveyard.
You see Zach did find Spire Bluff Canal there, so that Sweltering Suns will be online going forward, which is really the best answer in his deck to Whirler Virtuoso. Not that Thomas really has much energy in the first place. Because of his start here, he only has 2 energy. He's had to use a lot of that on his spells, just trying to cast them with that Aether Hub.
See Zach taking a couple points of damage off this Whirler Virtuoso. I mentioned that he has the Sweltering Suns as an answer. He'll have his double red next turn to answer it. But if all Thomas is doing is 2 damage a turn, Zach can take these hits for a while.
Sweltering Suns is one of the cards in Zach's deck that actually gets a lot better once he has Primal Wellspring online. Being able to double cast that and do 6 damage to all creatures can take care of some of the larger threats in the format.
So, Search for Azcanta triggers. It mills another copy of Search for Azcanta. Then it transforms into the land, which is going to act like an island with that second ability. And now Zach has found the hallmark card of his deck. This is the Primal Amulet. Okay, so first, his instant and sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast. You see you're casting Cut to Ribbons for 1. Every time he casts one, he's going to put a charge counter on Primal Amulet. The moment he casts a spell to get the 4th charge counter, this is going to transform, and this is really his win condition. It's another land. It's Primal Wellspring. It taps to add a mana of any color to your mana pool, and it doubles instants and sorceries. You mentioned it's a lot like Pyromancer's Goggles.
Mm-hmm. The ability to copy non-red sorcery is very relevant here, as Zach is killing with Ribbons and Torment of Hailfire, both black cards. Being able to tap for any color also relevant, since his deck is kind of primarily blue and red.
Well, that's what's so cool about this design, right, is that his deck is actually just these 2 Search for Azcantas, these 4 copies of Primal Amulet, and then the whole list is just draw spells and removal.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to every time just win with this Cut to Ribbons. You see Sweltering Suns takes care of Servant of the Conduit, and Thomas will abrade the Primal Amulet. Smart call there by Guan.
Yeah, you want to get that one off the table for sure.
Well, it's because he even sees the writing on the wall, right? Zach has a Ribbons in his graveyard. You see he just made land 7 here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, two Ribbons, in fact. It would be very quick for Zach to end the game when he started flashing those back. Zach's deck relatively light on counter spells, as you would expect.
And now we get to start seeing Azcanta at action. That's that land. Looks at the top 4. He'll put a copy of Supreme Will into his hand.
Yeah. 3 copies of Supreme Will and 3 copies of Censor would be the entire counter suite here. That would be the only means he had of protecting a Primal Wellspring.
So I like this, Ryan. It's a Grixis control deck, but rather than being counter spells, this is mostly just a removal-based type of Grixis control, but it still looks really nice here.
Mm-hmm.
So far, Zach has not struggled to answer anything out of Thomas's deck.
And notably, Thomas has stumbled a little bit on his setup, his mana base here for sure. That's made the road a little bit easier for Zach.
Chandra Torch of Defiance. It will be attempted by Thomas. Zach, we know, has Supreme Will handy. And I want to say, first of all, just how impressed I am at Azcanta. You look at a board like this. Zach has the mana to use Azcanta to find Supreme Will, cast it to counter Chandra. That's not fair at all.
Yeah, that's a pretty nice setup.
Right, if you can just keep tapping 4 to find a cancel, 3 to cancel something and saying go, it's going to be hard for Thomas to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in particular, Thomas hasn't been making a ton of his land drops here, though at this point, this is kind of the number of lands that he wants to actually function in a game. Well, here's Whirler Virtuoso. Zach will go for Glimmer of Genius. Now, I do have to ask, does he have any cards like... I don't believe any cards like Torrential Gearhulk in this deck. No, unfortunately not. It would help him with the pace of actually closing a game, just having another threat there. I have to imagine that the reason is he doesn't want to just have some creature that dies to whatever removal spell the opponent's playing.
Yeah, well, it's interesting if you're going to play a 4 Glimmer deck, which Zach is, to say, hey, I'm not going to play Torrential Gearhulk in my 4 Glimmer deck. I found a card that if he finds a card that he believes is better, that's certainly a bold statement. The combo of Gearhulk and Glimmer has been a staple of Standard for the last year.
Yep. It kind of has a setup where the only interaction he wants his opponents to have be even remotely live is a Braid.
And here is Bristling Hydra from Thomas. It's going to eat another copy of Supreme Will. Zach most likely has to prioritize Bristling Hydra very high. When it's on the board, it's going to be hard for his deck to answer.
Mm-hmm. So Thomas relatively low on energy. You could set up something with Sweltering Suns potentially. If he were able to get another Wellspring flips, that can cover a lot of Hydras. So in the current board state, he does have to get rid of it.
Now, 2 copies of Sweltering Suns in Zach's graveyard. Those are his only 2 copies in the main. Does he have a way to buy them back? Obviously, Thomas doesn't know the deck list, so he can't say there's no more.
Not that one. He does have a couple Hour of Devastations, though.
Okay, that would work. I guess depending on how much energy.
Also,
Thomas has.
he technically has a way to buy them back, as there is a struggle to survive in his deck, so he can shuffle them back in.
Okay. Well, I'm actually starting to notice with Zach's deck, he might need that effect. And I know that sounds rather silly. Looking at Zach's graveyard, he's got 13 spells in it here. And then I go to his deck list, start counting this removal. Without that reshuffle, it looks like it's possible for Zach to simply cast all his removal spells. Looking like he has something around I think about 13 count removal spells in here, which sounds like a ton, but it could run out.
Sure.
Here is Glorybringer from Thomas Guan. Zach will use Azcanta. There's the struggle to survive.
Plenty of lands to take down a Glorybringer with that one.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take it. You rarely see this green half of this card cast, as he'll use the red half, dealing damage to Glorybringer. But we do think Survive can come up here. Each player shuffles their graveyard into their library. Fair enough. Using Aether Hub for that green mana is something Zach would be interested in. His deck composition would greatly improve if both players shuffled up.
Yeah, not a ton of green sources in the deck, but enough. He can cast this as often as he wants to, I have to imagine.
Yeah, he has one in play. He has that hub. Another Glorybringer from Thomas. And this is where I'm feeling like the Teamer deck's outclassed. You see Zach using Azcanta again. And that it seems like every turn Thomas's best play is just to spend his mana to tap out for his biggest, best threat in hand, just one per turn, and see if Zach can answer it. And so far, especially with the card Azcanta, Zach has been up to the challenge of just killing Thomas's threat every turn, and I don't expect that to stop.
And this is actually the test for a deck like this Grixis Amulet deck. If we can get to this phase in the game and Zach can still lose, then I would say you should never play this deck. This is where he should be dominating.
You see he'll cycle a land. I do feel like, though, with this kind of mana, right, and Azcanta activated, I would think that Zach can get a kill spell every turn.
Yes.
Or at least I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did find a Primal Amulet again, so there's another win con going to start to get set up. See untaps. Zach did go to 12. He did take the hit off Glorybringer here. I'm not too worried just yet. Yep. Primal Amulet from Zach Elsik.
He has a sorcery speed answer in the form of Cut.
Yeah, Cut number 3. All of them in the graveyard now. That'll take care of Glorybringer. Counter on Primal Amulet. Remember, he can win very quick here. Harness Lightning on Long Tusk Cub, another counter.
It would be nice if Zach's deck had access to some life gain. You don't see any Vraska's Contempts, and part of the reason is his deck's not particularly black. It's more of a splash.
Okay. We have here, that's Chart a Course. You mentioned you see a lot of players going to play it without triggering. That's certainly going to be true in Zach's case. And this is an impressive thing here. Zach's looks like he's just going to flip Primal Amulet. What he wants to do is have it set out on 3 counters, and I believe have an instant in his hand. He wants to protect it from another Abrade, because if he has 3 here and Thomas tries to Abrade it, Zach can flip it into a land in response, and that would counter the Abrade.
Yeah.
So I think that's why we saw him just dump some sorceries.
Yep, that certainly makes sense.
Another Glorybringer from Thomas Guan. Harness Lightning from Zach, and Primal Amulet has transformed. And now we're going to get to see this Grixis deck close quickly into Primal Wellspring. And casts Opt. Off Primal Wellspring. Oh, I'm into this. Let's have 2 of those cards. Scry Bottom Draw, Scry Bottom Draw. Cycle Sensor. Let's count his lands. Does he have 12 lands?
He doesn't, but he does have multiple ribbons.
He has 10. Well, so he can't just win this turn. He has to wait a turn?
There's no risk of just dying immediately.
Oh, he's going to win this game. I want to know if he could just do it right now.
Sure. He may as well just let the first one rip, though. It looks like he has a lot of lands in his hand.
Well, I guess, wait, if the next one just deals 20, he doesn't really have to do one now and do one later. He could, you know.
don't want to get censored.
Fair enough. Nice.
And you see him here leaving up 1 mana.
Yeah, 10 copied off Primal Wellspring. So we see X equals 8. copied, so Thomas will take 16. Go to 4. And there's another Ribbons in the Graveyard. This is a nice finish for a control deck. What I especially like about this is that it's good in the face of counter magic as well. You know, there's 2 copies of Ribbons on the stack. He can do it again next turn. Even if Thomas was a control deck, I don't think he'd survive this finish.
Yeah, once you resolve Primal Wellspring, that's the hurdle against a control deck.
Yeah, once it turns into a land, I mean...
Well, resolving your 4-mana artifact is significant if counter magic's a problem.
And game 1 goes to Grixis Amulet and Zach Elsik. And so far, passing, I think, this test of can you answer a mid-range creature deck, I would say yes from that game.
Yep.
And this is great. So let's look over the sideboard. Zach, always innovative with his deck lists. What I always like about Zach Elsik's deck lists is they have a lot of focus to them. You know, you see something like this this deck is going to cast, how is it going to win? It really just has one way. It casts Primal Amulet, and then it copies a Black X spell.
Yep.
Each game. So let's look at the sideboard. He's got 3 negates, 2 copies of the Scarab God, 2 Magma Spray, 2 copies of Battle at the Bridge, a Disallow, a Consign to Oblivion, a 2nd copy of Struggle to Survive, and then we can go with some Ixalan cards. He's got a Fiery Cannonade, a Sorceress Spyglass, and then he even has 1 copy of Metallurgic Summoning.
There's a reasonable chance that Zach will go to some of these 5-mana cards that actually are more win conditions and ways to close the game out. Scarab God actually seems quite good in this matchup. In particular, it just gives Zach another thing that he can have on the battlefield. He's going to be kill spelling all of Thomas's stuff anyway. That's his game plan, so this is just another way to win the game. It's resilient as well. You know, he knows that Thomas has abrades, and you can't abrade the Scarab God out of the game, so that one's quite good in this matchup. Metallurgic Summonings I'm less into, but that one's totally fine. Reasonable argument for Disallow, just because it's another way to deal with Glorybringer on your opponent's turn. You insulate your life total that way. But I imagine relatively light sideboard here for Zach.
Now, I do want to ask about a card in Zach's sideboard. It's a copy of Sorceress Spyglass. So this is a 2-mana rare from Ixalan. That's an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, he looks at opponent's hand and chooses a card name. Activate abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. So this is, you know, your 2-mana hate artifact out of the set. Is there a specific target that he has in mind with something like this, or is he just hedging his bets?
Likely hedging his bets. You know, this is particularly good against Planeswalkers. If you think that you're going to get beat up by a Chandra, Torch of Defiance. No, again, his deck is light on counter magic, heavy on removal. So if you expect to get beat up by Planeswalkers, this is a good hedge.
So it's like kind of, it's along the same lines as when you see sometimes a control player put maybe like a card like Ruined Halo in their sideboard. It's just, hey, this might answer something. There's not a specific, like, I can't beat card X, I need this going on.
It's card type X.
Okay. Planeswalker?
Yeah, Planeswalker is kind of a blind spot for his deck.
All right. On Thomas's side, we have 3 negate, 2 spell pierce. I'm just going to go quickly here over the cards that he'd want. I assume he wants counter spells. Yep. I mean, Zach's deck's all non-creature spells.
Very into those counter spells. You could maybe go for Confiscation Coup to steal a Wellspring, but that's probably a little cute.
Thomas, copy of Vizier of Many Faces. Do you like any of these threats? Ronus,
I like
Sky
Chandra.
Sovereign.
I like Chandra.
Definitely do like Chandra here. Well, they're going to get ready for a second game. Over on StarCityGames.com, we have the weekly sale. It's something from the Star City Games store. A different card, different thing on sale every weekend. So we've been giving this week 15% off all Judge Foil promos, and some of these are really nice here. You see, one of your only ways to get foil Windswept Heath with original art, for example. Those have been on sale this all week and will continue throughout the weekend. So head on over to starcitygames.com/weekly sale to check these out.
See the Phyrexian Elish Nord hiding in the back. That should certainly be in the front. That is a beautiful piece.
And check in on Monday morning when we switch to next week's weekly sale. Yeah, for some of the Judge foils, I actually have to head on over there. I recently picked up my first copies of the Judge promo Azusa. I have to say, I think the art is a 10 out of 10 on that.
Sure.
It is gorgeous if you haven't seen that card yet.
A couple new Judge promos just dropped this week from the
some
Exemplar.
Portal 3 Kingdoms cards getting printed as Judge promos?
Usually. The big one, there's new art for Doran the Siege Tower.
Okay.
That card hasn't seen play in, 6 years or whatever, but it's very big casual hit.
Christian Calcano, a fan of that one. I think was it Capture of Xingzhou? It's the Time Warp.
Yeah.
That one getting reprinted.
That sounds correct. Yeah, over time, they release more and more of those portal cards. Some of them more exciting than others.
I think second time more excited. That one's exciting to me.
No, that
I'm
one
into that one,
certainly
yeah.
is. That one certainly is.
A lot of them are the functional reprints, right? Cards. So you look at things like Imperial Seal, Ravages of War, Burning of Shinje.
So the ones that are for Commander, where like the idea is to get the Judge promo, I'm personally not very into. I like the fact that strategic planning is standard legal, so I can go play 4 copies of the P3K version.
Do you have Portal 3 Kingdom plannings?
I only have 1 because I had it in a cube, but if I were going to play standard, I'd just buy the other 3.
That is nice.
Yeah, that card was very expensive for a minute. It was in one of the Commander decks, and now it's just a standard common.
Right. Yeah, it was this interesting common that was like this role player common that only existed in Portal 3 Kingdoms.
Yep.
So Thomas on the play looks like he will keep 6 and scry to the bottom. You know, looking at my bingo card, Ryan, Zach, I think, cast Opt like 7 times that game, and I think he scried to the bottom all of them.
He scried a top on 1, I think.
He scried a top on 1.
I think he got 1.
All right.
He also discarded a card to chart a course.
I do have some squares. Yeah, he's helping out. Those of you remember, we have some bingo cards over. Just following us on Twitter at SCG Tour. You see that on the bottom of your screen. We'll recap at the end of the round if we've checked stuff off as well.
Please make your way to your seats. Again, 10 a.m. sealed spectacular players.
All right, first play here by Thomas. Looks like we have an invocation. It's that copy of Aronis the Indomitable out of the sideboard. Because he's on the play, that's going to sneak under any card like Supreme Will. Now, this might be pretty significant that it's resolved. Once it's on the table, Zach's deck's not very well equipped to deal with this.
No, you're going to have some trouble dealing with Ronis. The question is whether Thomas is able to assemble more threats, and this early mana base from him is kind of awkward. You see Sheltered Thicket, Double Forest, not seeing any blue mana in there. We'll see if he's able to fix that and get some actual bodies that can attack and block on the battlefield.
Not seeing a 4th land either. Thomas will go for Servant of the Conduit. And that'll get hit by Magma Spray. Yeah, you see that Rogue Refiner in Thomas's hand. That's not going to help. For the second game in a row, Thomas has had some mana woes here on the colored sources. Let's take a look at some of the cards, his breakdown of mana in his sideboard, or mana in his deck. He does have 3 Spirebluff Canal, 4 Botanical Sanctum, so 7 of those Teamer Color fast lands, 4 Aether Hub, 2 Sheltered Thicket, and then 7 basics. This is pretty similar to last Standard's Teamer Energy, so while he's had mana issues for 2 straight games, I'm not entirely sure that this is going... This feels like just the bad side of variance as opposed to a fundamental change.
And just in terms of lands, he has 12 blue sources, 4 Attunes, and obviously his Servant of the Conduit died, though big exchange on the battlefield here.
So we saw a copy, and I like how I can do this on 5 mana instead of 6, of Primal Amulet be made by Zach. Thomas went for an Abrade, and because it cost 1 less, Zach was able to negate the Abrade.
And on the topic of big exchanges, Thomas answers back in a big way with a Bristling Hydra and an attack with Ronis.
Yeah, so now he's got 2 great threats. He's got this Bristling Hydra with 6 energy, so it's going to have hexproof. He has Ronis now online thanks to Bristling Hydra, and Zach has the answer that he needed. It is Hour of Devastation, and that kills both of them as it makes gods lose indestructible. Kind of as is the flavor of the card, Nicol Bolas, one of the only ways to answer these gods from Amonkhet.
Yeah, this has been a really impressive back and forth from Zach, being able to stabilize from that board. That's really just the power of Hour of Devastation.
Rogue Refiner from Thomas draws him a card. Zach cycles a land on end step. He's got 2 counters on Primal Amulet so far. You see Supreme Will in hand. That's going to be number 3. Cut to Ribbons. He'll cast Cut on Rogue Refiner. That's spell 3. And we're already looking at a very quick turnaround for Zach's deck.
It's a good argument for just casting the Supreme Will now because of Braid mana not being represented by Thomas. At the same time, Thomas does have to get something on the battlefield to make that really matter. And if Zach could just like cast a removal spell against one creature and then copy the Supreme Will, that would be more advantageous.
I guess the question is with these 3 counters, whether Zach would go for an end-step Supreme Will if Thomas just says go. That he'd be scared. There'd be some concern about a Braid if he did that play.
To be concerned about a Braid, and you see Thomas does have Negate in hand, so he could stop that Supreme Will from finding anything as well.
Yeah, stops from finding anything. Now, the trigger on Primal Amulet is on cast, I believe.
You'll still get to flip it, but Zach's hand is empty. He only has that Supreme Will right now.
And look, Thomas said go. Zach not wanting to risk getting hit by a Braid. He very intelligently doesn't play the end-step Supreme Will. And he'll cast second Primal Amulet.
Yep, some of the flip cards in the new set Ixalan are legendary. Primal Wellspring, or Amulet, not one of them.
Now, Primal Amulet, not one of them, but when you look at Primal Wellspring, can you have more than one of those in play?
Yes, indeed. Yeah,
all right.
There's nothing in the set that goes from legendary to non-legendary or vice versa.
Great. Negate is cast by Thomas on the second Amulet.
I will say it is strange that some of the flip cards are maze and some of them are musts.
Yeah. Look how cautious Thomas is. He's drawn Glorybringer, but he still wants to represent that a Braid, so he's going to cast Whirler Virtuoso here instead of Glorybringer. And Zach Supreme Will. Looks like he's going to attempt to counter. We'll see, does Thomas have another Braid? He does not. So it'll counter the Virtuoso, transform the Wellspring, and now Long Tusk Cub is the answer from Guan. So Zach is now empty-handed, drawing off the top. However, he's got 9 lands in play. 12 lands is lethal.
Yep, it's ticking into that.
He has 1 Primal Wellspring, so a card like Glimmer of Genius as a draw would be huge here. We see Ribbons cast by Zach here. It's going to be for X equals 8. So once again, it's that 16-point burn spell. Now, there's not a second Ribbons in his yard, so he's going to have to find a way to win. Thomas immediately puts spends all his energy to Long Tusk Cub, making it a 5/5.
And the Ribbons here makes it so he's live to just draw second, cast, cut, and Ribbons on the same turn to make that lethal.
Glorybringer cast. Thomas swings for 9. Well, he's put Zach down to 1 draw. Can Zach do it? And that's not going to do it. Thomas evens things out at 1 game apiece.
Zach's deck, a little bit better on the play, specifically because of Censor.
Yeah.
Gets the momentum going a little bit better.
A little less impressive there. You know, it does make me think back to the first game and just how important was the card Search for Azcanta in his first game?
That drew him 3, 4, 5 extra cards in a meaningful time frame. You did see kind of the issue there was that Zach did run out of gas.
Right.
He had very excellent interaction in the early game, but then there was that point where he had Supreme Will and 2 lands. The Glimmer of Genius really the only card in his hand that's generating significant card advantage.
Right, so it's like, I mean, and if I looked at that board and said, hey, what if he had a copy of Azcanta? Okay, instead of having to cast that, cut to Ribbons, the Ribbons for 8, he could activate it, like activate the land, find a Glimmer, cast a copied Glimmer, draw 4 cards, untap, double kill spell. It seems like that was really the missing piece of the puzzle.
When it comes to Search for Azcanta, though, he's playing 2 copies, and I gotta figure that is the limit or close to it because the card is so mopey on the front side.
Yeah, and it's legendary on top of it. There's a lot of reasons. It's a card that digs through your deck at high velocity, like Search for Azcanta, that's legendary, is going to find it. You're going to legend rule it a lot if you play too many.
Yep. And while I understand the reasoning, I'd like to get 1 or 2 Torrential Gearhulks into this deck just to give you more meaningful top decks in spots like that.
Yeah, I was going to say, would you be interested in maybe in a card like Dynavolt Tower, something like that?
That one's fine. It doesn't solve the you need to top deck problem, but it does give you a more robust setup package.
Yeah, it is interesting, right? Dynavolt Tower versus Primal Amulet. In a lot of ways, they feel like the same card. I would expect that one is better than the other in a lot of ways.
And you don't want to go super heavy on that because they don't trigger off of each other.
So based on the first game, I would say I liked Primal Amulet more than Dynavolt Tower. Do you have a feeling one way or the other on this? If you want a big removal spell deck, which would you rather have be your, kind of like your closing artifact?
So I've played a good amount with Dynavolt Tower, and I played a little bit with the old Pyromancer's Goggles lists. And the thing that Dynavolt Tower really does a great job of facilitating is being heavy on counter magic, because it's so efficient when it comes down. It only costs 3 to resolve. So that's really the strength of Dynavolt Tower, is you can cast it and leave up some 3-mana counterspell on the same turn. Primal Wellspring is, you see Zach's deck, the way it's composed, he wants more sorcery speed stuff. So the more your deck wants to do sorcery speed stuff, the more I'd rather have Primal Wellspring.
Well, as far as leaving up counter magic, they're the same though, right? Because because the amulet discounts the counterspell by 1.
Yes and no, because the thing is that the Wellspring wants you to cast 4 more spells. You want to cast this on turn 4.
Yeah, that makes sense. You want to play it pretty immediate.
Yeah, and you get a lot of incidental energy just by having Dynavolt Tower with the energy spells, Harness Lightning, Glimmer Genius, Ether Hub. Before it's on the battlefield, you're building up activations. So they're pretty significantly different. And certainly if I was going to play Dynavolt Tower, I would shift this to green and play Attune with Ether.
Remember when you go back to those Pyromancer's Goggles decks, one of the strengths of them is they played 4 copies of Magmatic Insight and 4 copies of Tormenting Voice.
Yes. Chart, of course, pretty good.
Yeah, 2 copies in Zach's deck.
Yep.
Not as much. As far as draw spells, he just has those 2 Chart, of course, and 4 Glimmers, and I suppose the 3 Supreme Wills if you want to be generous.
Yep. Might be nice to see some Hieroglyphic Illuminations in the deck as well.
It's pretty free to run a card like that. So they're going to enter a deciding game. It'll put Zach back on the play. Now, we're going to be here casting all weekend. We're casting over at StarCityGames.com and on Twitch.tv. You can join us over in the feature match here on the SCG Tour. That's with our Twitch subscription program. It's only $4.99 a month. You get subscriber status, custom emoticons and badges, and you can vote in the quarterfinals on Sunday for the decks and players you want to see. To do that, just have to subscribe to us over on Twitch.tv, which is twitch.tv/SCG Tour. Some woes here for Thomas Guan, mulliganing to 5 in our 3rd game. Last game, remember, he was on a 6-card hand. Still was able to pull that one out.
If his mana cooperates, he can certainly put a lot of pressure on Zach very quickly.
Well, that's always been one of the difficulties, I think, with this blue-red shell in Standard, is that its removal spells, I've always felt, are a little below the line on efficiency. Not horrible.
Harness Lightning is the Doomblade of this format.
Harness Lightning's great.
That's the Cadillac of standard legal removal spells.
Right, so then when you look at this, kind of like Harness Lightning support staff, if you would, okay, Supreme Will is a little more mana than I want to pay for things.
Cut to Ribbons is excellent, but it's sorcery speed.
Sorcery speed and 2 mana. There's just, like I said, the pieces are all there. The mix of draw spells, removal spells, all the card effects you'd want in a Grixis control, or in a blue-red, it's basically a blue-red control deck, are there. Just all of them are a little, I think if you want to talk about efficiency, they're just a little high on mana. So when you take them all together, the deck can just be slow at times.
Sure. And that certainly comes up, and that's actually one of the problems that Hour of Devastation does a great job of solving.
Right.
Just deals with so much stuff so efficiently. The problem is you're liable to take a bit of damage along the way. Yeah,
Hour of Devastation really helped blue-red. Before that card was printed, it was really this Glimmer Gear Hulk deck that was, if they came out too fast, you lost.
Yeah, you really needed to find a way to stabilize the board very quickly with a lot of 1-for-1 stuff lining up perfectly. So that takes some of the pressure off. He has a good mix of ways to find it. Opt is not the most powerful cantrip ever printed, but it certainly helps. Digs you deeper, faster. Search for Escanta, also kind of mopey, but it helps you find specific cards over time.
Right, another powerful but slightly overcosted spell for the blue-red deck.
If you just get a lot of Scry 1s, they add up.
Yeah. No, and I mean, in Grixis, it does have the tools to play control if it can survive those early turns.
Yep.
And shouldn't be too hard. Thomas has not kept many lands in his opener, I believe, on a 4-card hand. But we'll see. So he does have Servant to the Conduit here on the 2nd turn. That'll get hit by Harness Lightning.
Probably the most common turn 2 sequence in Standard over the last year.
Now there is some pressure on Zach. His land mana base, Mountain, Aether Hub. And Thomas, despite a mulligan to 4 with a card like Rogue Refiner here, could start to undo that mulligan. And that'll work. Draws a card, goes to 5 energy. Zach will opt. Mana not cooperating just yet. Scries to the bottom. An impressive showing for 4-card hand so far for Thomas. He's forcing Zach to do something.
Yep. Rogue Refiner, of course, a redraw, so that one's always excellent to have, in particular when you mulligan a bunch.
Yeah, Thomas wouldn't mind just getting chaining a bunch of Rogue Refiners here. That'd be a great start to the game. So you see his first one dies to cut to ribbons, and speak of it, here we go.
Yeah.
Second one. Yeah, I see his grin showing up here for Thomas. Zach's gonna opt. My, he's made a game of this. I was worried that we were gonna see a cruise to an easy game 3 finish, but now we're online. Yeah.
Zach hasn't really brought a deck that gets easy wins to the table.
Yeah, he end step opted and scried to the top with that one. So presumably he's found something to fix this double mountain, double hub draw. But he just says go and misses the land drop.
Tells me that it's probably Glimmer of Genius that he found.
Yeah, but if he had that, he may have wanted to do it main phase. I believe Thomas possibly sits on a negate.
That would be bad.
Yeah. You see, in Thomas some decisions here. He has Censor, Negate, and another Rogue Refiner as he attacks in for 3. Thought about leaving up. Actually shows a Negate. About leaving up counter spells, but he'll just go for another Rogue Refiner here. Mentioned a stack of Rogue Refiners could do the trick. And they are so far. Botanical Sanctum for Thomas. And Zach just draws. No Glimmer.
Oh, wow.
He will Sweltering Suns away the Refiners and play a land. All right, Thomas, what do you have? Just says go.
Yeah, and he's drawn his Ronus, but he wants to leave up that Negate. He doesn't want Zach to easily assemble Primal Wellspring or something like that.
Yeah, it looks like he has 2 Censors and a Negate in hand. Thomas will need another threat, of course. And search for Azcanta for Zach. I don't know that Thomas can let this one resolve. He may want to fight over it, but he will not. He'll just draw his card, draws Bristling Hydra. No cycle of Censor on end step there for Thomas. As he has, I somewhat expected one. You see Glorybringer in his hand as well.
Zach has been stumbling a little bit on lands. Now that he has 5 and the search for Azcanta, which is going to turn into his land as well, it's probably going to be pretty difficult for Thomas to convert a Censor. It's likely, though, that if he uses the Negate, he will need Censor backup to actually make it matter.
Here's Bristling Hydra. He'll play it into possible Supreme Will. And how about into Censor? Zach counters.
Yikes.
Well, I think the concern if Thomas is going to leave up counter spells is Zach's going to flip this search for Azcanta.
Yep.
And then if both players just say land go, Thomas is going to lose that game to the land.
Yep. Pretty much a one-sided Howling Mine.
Zach will flip. Looking at the Ixalan cards we've seen here out of Zach's deck, I'm going to say I'm not that sold on Primal Amulet, but this Azcanta, I'm into that. It won him his first game. The second game, it felt like he was really missing one, and I like how it looks again this time.
Yeah, and I think that you might be onto something with the Amulet. It is the way that the deck is currently composed wins games.
Yeah.
However, it's fairly easy to make a lateral shift and just change what your closer is.
Zach's going to find Harness Lightning on end step. Thomas has not presented any threats. He's up to about 7 cards in his hand here. And as Zach starts activating this Azcanta, I'm really looking at Thomas to start cycling some Censors, finding some lands, doing something here. Cycles a Censor, there we go. And looks like he'll make those plays. Finds Chandra, cycles again. Don't know that he's found the land yet. Finds Bristling Hydra, finds Ronus. All right, we'll have to try for something. We'll start with Ronus.
Pretty easy to let that one resolve.
Yeah.
Does not do anything on its own.
Oh, and here's the second Azcanta activation for Zach. Finds Glimmer of Genius. This card has not missed yet in Zach's build, and I don't think it's going to start missing at any time here.
Yeah, I mean, you're the math guy, but I will say this much. It's very likely to hit.
I think that the restrictions on playing it, I mean, are well, not even that high.
Based on my early studies, it is 100% define a card.
I think that's how that checks out.
Yeah.
And here's that sideboard Scarab God from Zach Elsik. Leaves up 3 mana as well. Can't negate that one. Thomas draws another Chandra. He's running into this problem where he has all these counter spells, but then a bunch of 4 and 5 mana threats, and with only 4 lands, it's not really functioning.
And this is something that's really nice about the Scarab God out at the sideboard. Obviously, Thomas was tapped low, but even if he had negate up, he couldn't attack the Scarab God anyway. Where Zach's main deck, of course, presented no creatures.
Thomas can try for Bristling Hydra. That'll resolve. So we see Scarab God, beginning of Zach's upkeep. Each opponent loses X life, and he'll scry X, where X is the number of zombies he controls. Okay, none of those. But for 4 mana, he exiles a creature from a graveyard and gets a copy of that creature, except it's a 4/4 zombie.
So the hurdle, Zach's going to need a black mana to activate an ability, but once he finds the first Rogue Refiner off of this ability, he's going to make a bunch of 4/4 Rogue Refiners and just go off.
I suppose he gets the Enter the Battlefield trigger off those as well. He's got to answer a Bristling Hydra with 12 energy supporting it.
Yeah, block forever.
Block forever.
Eventually ribbons your opponent.
He'll cast Glimmer of Genius. And I suppose even if Zach has to Hour of Devastation this board away, he's probably fine with that.
He's got to deal with this Ronus.
Right.
So he could possibly have brought in that sideboard Consign to Oblivion. That's an answer. Well, the Hour of Devastations would be the other.
Yeah, and I mean, he'd lose his Scarab God, but I think he'd be okay with that.
Yeah, if it stops him from dying, you know, whatever.
Right, he's got Ascanta going, he just cast a Glimmer. The longer the game goes, the better for Zach.
Yeah, and Thomas being a little bit choked on mana, leaving him only to 1 Ronus activation a turn is fairly significant here. The Hydra can get quite large. There are 12 energy floating there.
Swing with both creatures for Thomas. You see his creatures are doing a great job of blanking Zach's removal in a lot of ways. He's got 2 copies of Cut to Ribbons in hand. Can't hit an Indestructible God or a Hexproof Hydra with that one. Now Zach had left up 4 mana, including a black mana source with that Aether Hub, so there is a Scarab God activation available.
That will leave him with 9/9 worth of blockers.
Right.
Got to figure those are both getting in front of the Bristling Hydra if the play is to just activate.
Yeah, if he just makes a 4/4 and double blocks the Hydra. Looks like he's going to activate Scarab God. See what creature he wants to choose. This means Thomas will be free to cast a post-combat spell. Zach has tapped out for this.
Zach does have a fistful of spells, though.
And he'll take another one. He got a Rogue Refiner eternalized.
I would imagine that there are no Harness Lightnings in Thomas' deck for the post-sideboard game.
And they're going to double block their Bristling Hydra. Yeah, I'd be surprised if there's some sort of, combat trick here on Thomas's side. Harness Lightning down the 1 creature, 2 counters on Hydra. I mean, it'd be great. I don't think it'll happen.
This isn't the electrostatic pummeler build. There's not pump spells hanging out here.
If he wants to kill both, he needs to get up to 9 power. He could +2/+0 the Hydra and spend 9 energy on it, and it would trade with everything. I don't know that's how he wants to spend his turn.
If he's only killing the Rogue Refiner, or even only killing the Scarab God in this trade, I guess he's getting in 5 damage, which could be significant.
Yeah, I mean, Zach is at 12, so he doesn't need too many more hits. So it looks like we'll do 1 counter on Hydra. That makes it big enough, and he's ordered the Scarab God first, so he might just have it trade with the God and deal 5 with his Ronus. There's no life gain in Zach's deck either.
And because it's Ronus, this would be another great spot for Vraska's Contempt, of course. It'd be difficult for Zach to cast it. Again, he's been relying on these Aether Hubs to make small amounts of black mana, even blue mana on the early turns.
So Zach down to 7. What 4 mana card does Thomas want to use here? He has Chandra. He could kill the Eternalized creature. Tap land. Looks like he's got Negate Chandra. He has to decide if he wants to leave up that Negate or tap out for one of these 4 mana cards.
Chandra clearing up that 4/4 seems to be a pretty good play on this board.
He's going to go ahead and make Chandra, and I think he's going to have to make that play. And he's going to make mana off it, I think. No, exile the top card, shoot Zach down to 5. Okay. You know, it is out of range of the zombie here. Thomas might just be on a burn plan.
And even if Zach can't realistically attack,
right,
and then Tom just plays some 4-power creature, bashes with the Ronus.
Yeah, this is fine. And now that the Ronus isn't online, Hour of Devastation doesn't actually clean up this board anymore. Zach's going to cast it anyway. Oh, no, it still cleans it up.
Yep.
It still does.
Big 5. Chandra, of course, a non-bolus planeswalker. That one's going to bite the dust.
Right. And Zach, 7 cards in hand, may just have to leave up some mana here. 8 cards, actually. Discards a copy of Cut to Ribbons.
Sure. Probably has plenty of just removal spells otherwise. It looks like he has a Negate in his hand, at least one, so he wants to leave that up in case another Chandra shows up.
I think Negate, Censor, and Supreme Will all here.
Being able to censor a Glorybringer here would be very nice.
Thomas is going to go for another Chandra. Fair enough. Plays around Censor. This will force one of the other 2 counters out of Zach.
Yeah, got to get that one out of here.
Whether the Negate or the Supreme Will, Zach goes for the Negate. And it looks like we see a Spell Pierce from Thomas. No, he insists that Chandra resolve.
You don't often get to Spell Pierce your opponent that just has 8 mana sources, 9 mana sources on the battlefield, but it was real nice there.
And plus on Chandra, 2 more damage. Zach is down to 3. He'll cycle Censor.
He's got to find Scarab God this turn.
Yeah, this is hard.
Other Hour of Devastation. He's got to get this Chandra off the battlefield.
I suppose there's a world where he could cast a Primal Amulet this turn, take 2 more, flip it, and Cut to Ribbons for...
Yeah, if you just win the game.
Yeah, I mean, that would work. He doesn't have it. He's going to cast Scarab God.
So he has to have the Scarab God. The Scarab God should survive. You know, it's on the battlefield. He needs to get another creature and actually have them both connect and hit the Chandra, because that's going to go at a 6 loyalty on this turn.
Yeah, I suppose Scarab God is only a 5/5. When Thomas pluses, it'll be 6 loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for a mulligan to 4, this is pretty close.
Yeah, you would not immediately gather that Thomas mulligan to 4 just looking at what's happening here.
Right. I mean, this is the power of Rogue Refiner, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And it looks like Thomas actually making mana off Chandra. Didn't go for the burn plan. He's going to cast Glorybringer off that mana. And I think he's backing it up with counter magic. Looks like Stubborn Denial and Negate. Not Stubborn Denial. He can't play it. He has a Negate, something else here. So he'll Negate Harness Lightning. And Zach's going to Supreme Will the Negate. I'm a little skeptical. How do you feel about making mana to cast Glorybringer as opposed to just dealing 2? It was a really bold move by Thomas. But this trade did not work. With how it played out, I think Thomas would have preferred to have the 2 damage.
So we got rid of Zach's untapped mana, cleaned some counter spells out, so Zach won't be able to kill the Chandra here. Actually, scratch that. He can make the Glorybringer if he so desires. And he could clean up the Chandra that way.
He says no, he wants Rogue Refiner. I guess he can have more than 1, huh?
And he's got plenty of mana here.
Yeah, that's another danger, I suppose, about putting Glorybringer into the graveyard in that sequence, is he opened up the possibility to kill his own Chandra.
Mm-hmm. Zach doesn't necessarily have to do that because he is still at 3 because the Chandra made mana.
Right.
At the same time, though, it would be pretty nice to just have a Glorybringer here.
I'll attack Chandra down to 1. Oh, he's attacking Thomas. He was back up his head to attack, and Thomas immediately took the die off Chandra, and then Zach says, no, I haven't decided who I'm attacking yet. Hold on.
Once the Scarab God gets going, Zach has all kinds of power on the battlefield. He also just has ribbons in his graveyard.
Here's Chart of Course, and he attacked this turn.
Ooh. +1 card.
Well, I suppose he's got a rib. He has ribbons in his yard. He discarded that cut earlier.
Yep.
Yeah, he just says, fine, I'm going to just win the regular way.
And he got the Negate out of Thomas's hand as well.
So Thomas has to plus Chandra. He'll exile the top card. Sky Sovereign, that's not going to help.
Yeah, wouldn't cast that one.
So Zach's down to 1. Thomas going to try to block here. Here's Long Tusk Cub. So let's look at it. Let's get a count here on Zach's mana. I think that's going to be pretty important.
Looks like he can ribbons for 9.
Yeah.
Lands available.
11. Yeah, he has 11 lands. Possibly 10 if he has a land drop, which a notable difference here with Thomas at 10.
Yes.
And how about this? Zach's going to copy Eternalize the Ronus, which means he can give his other creatures trample.
Yeah, Ether Hub can make green mana here.
Very nice on Zach's side. And now main phase is going to Eternalize Glorybringer. Yeah, let's do it.
I think this is in response to the Scarab God trigger.
Okay,
Now
sure.
Now there's zombie, little zombie dragon.
Oh, I don't know that Thomas is going to get through this attack.
If I was his opponent, he wouldn't get through this scry. I would be picking him up.
And Thomas has gotten Zach down to 1. Players have reached time in the round. That one's not going to matter. I think we're ending the game this turn.
Yeah, several different ways for Zach to close out the game from here.
Yeah, he'll use Cut on Long Tusk Cub. Thomas negates.
Okay.
That's fine. Rona, he's still got that 1 green mana left and the Aether Hub to use it. Attack with everything. Exert. Yeah, handshake. Zach Elsik, 2 games to 1, is going to squeak by here in the first round.
So
interesting.
Little given